Originally released March 25th, 2021 on Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series as Evil Inside by developer and publisher Jandu Soft. Then, May 7th, 2026 on PSVR2 and MetaQuest by developer Bowl of Tentacles as Evil Inside VR. I wanted this since its flat days. Never got a key, so I moved on. But when I heard it was getting a VR version, I realized I didn't really miss out on the flat version, as there was a 99% probability, as with most gaming experiences, Evil Inside would be better in VR. Was I right? Let's find out. Thanks to Jandu Soft and Bowl of Tentacles for the PSVR2 and MetaQuest keys. Watch the TV series, The Lab Video Game TV, Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays on Flow 1 in 25 Caribbean countries, and on the Stream Blue app in the Caribbean. Check out The Lab Video Game TV's gaming news every Thursday at 4 p.m. during the Sage Projects on Ontario's Island Radio 101.3 FM and at cjai.ca. Now, let's see how well or how bad Bowl of Tentacles did with Evil Inside VR. I've started a new series. Only one episode in so far, but I'm chipping away. It's called Better in VR. I was torn between adding Evil Inside VR there or here. I'll probably do both. Like I said, Evil Inside was originally a flat experience, and Bowl of Tentacles has proved us VR enthusiasts right once again. Evil Inside is indeed better in VR. Could Bowl of Tentacles have done a better VR port? Yes, as there is room for several improvements. However, job well done, guys. While not all gaming genres are better in VR, a haunted house, walking sim style experience like this certainly is.
Thanks, Joe. They found the body of Rose, the woman who went missing last Monday.
First, let's talk story. The story is pretty bad, but let's take a step back. Evil Inside is being labeled by many as a PT clone. And while I've never experienced PT, I'll say fair enough. Because while I've never experienced the cult classic that almost was, I heard a lot about it, so I have a pretty good idea what it's about. I mentioned PT because Evil Inside's story feels rushed, and while PT, short for Playable Teaser, was released way back in 2014, the story of Evil Inside, especially after playing through the entire experience, feels like the original developers just wanted to get a piece of that PT hype. And that's fair to say, because to this day, the PT hype seems to be alive and well. I don't think I've ever seen a video game teaser leaving people yearning this much for so long before. Seems like it will never end. Gamers will always be talking about this Silent Hill game that never happened. Anyway, the story is not very good and feels thrown together.
My mom is dead, my father in prison, and I have to take care of my little brother.
If you read the description of the original Evil Inside online, you'll get a whole lot more information on its story than you will ever get in-game. And this threw me off and led to one of my disappointments with the VR release. This review is one I have to approach with particular caution, because my main gripes with Evil Inside VR are not with the VR developers. It's with the original developers, Jandu Soft. Unless of course the flat version had more content and was gutted from this VR version, which I highly doubt. The VR version on its own has issues, but the things that bother me the most arise from the core game, not the VR port. And the story is one of these gripes. To learn more about a game's story from press releases and online descriptions on Steam and gaming websites is a sign of poor game design.
Forensics located her camera near a well, in which her lifeless body was also found. Her husband, the alleged killer, has already been arrested.
You get a flat cutscene at the beginning, a news report. Then it transitions to you inside the house, still flat. You hear your character Mark having a vague discussion with someone about making contact with the afterlife. Then it transitions to VR. While going through the experience, Mark has these monologues. You'll see stuff scribbled on the walls and a few other things, but the story is never explained clearly in-game. It feels like the original developers just threw something together, threw it at you and said, form your own conclusions. If I didn't read a description online prior to playing, I wouldn't know what the significance of the Ouija board was. And the ending, while it wouldn't have made the story much better either way, The fact that it played out flat made it fall flat. It had absolutely no scare factor. The ending failed even worse, being flat in a VR experience. If the VR developers somehow took the time and found a way to properly translate that ending to VR, it would have been so much more impactful. If it's possible to have an on-rails experience in VR like Switchback and Rush of Blood, then it's possible to have any cutscene made to VR. Would it require more work and resources on the devs' part? More than likely, but still possible and would have made these cutscenes, particularly the ending, so much better. Let's talk sound. The sound was well designed. Some sound effects like walking down a blood-soaked corridor didn't sound very convincing. It sounded more like someone was rubbing plastic together. And at one point, Mark's footsteps sounded like he was walking with a limp. It seems the devs fixed that though. I heard it when I first started the PSVR2 playthrough. I didn't hear it on the Quest version, which I played before the PSVR2 version, but that hobble was present on PSVR2. After starting it up the second time, it wasn't there anymore on PSVR2 though. The overall atmospheric sounds were well done. The 3D audio was effective. I was able to follow the sounds of a weeping ghost in order to locate a candle I was supposed to light, and generally, the sound design was spot on. The voice acting was definitely subpar B movie grade though. There wasn't much voice acting, and based on the credits, two persons I think doubled up and did pretty much all the voices.
Hello?
Hi, Mark. It's been a long time since what happened to your mother. That happened many months ago. Are you better?
Yeah, sorry. Listen, are you in contact with the afterlife?
The music and score were also solid. That creepy piano at the title screen served its purpose. Over in visuals, Evil Inside VR holds up decently. By no means were the visuals great, but certainly good enough. The PSVR2 version also looks significantly better than the Quest version I experienced. However, the mirror effect everyone has been complaining about on the PSVR2 since launch was very noticeable here. And the shadows didn't look that great either. This stands out a whole lot more in an experience that's generally as dark as this one. Also, there was something off with the tracking of my hands. They weren't properly synced to my real hands. Best way to explain this, your real hands will always go up further than your in-game hands. Attempt to touch your face in-game to get what I'm saying. When raising my hands in-game, I always noticed my VR hands didn't track properly, and this affected immersion in an otherwise somewhat very immersive experience. In gameplay, over in settings, we've got comfort options which include the vignette, standing or seated, turning speed and degree. Then general covered, language, vibration, save delete, and the credits. Sound options covered subtitles, sound effects volume, voice volume, and music volume. Like I said earlier, Evil Inside from its flat days was labeled a PT clone. If you're familiar with PT, then you'll know what to expect from Evil Inside and Evil Inside VR. I never played PT, but I heard about it. Because I never played it and never watched any videos on PT, I ended up being surprised and disappointed by Evil Inside VR. Yes, I knew a little about PT, but clearly not enough. Kojima projects never interested me and probably never will. I didn't realize what I was getting into. On one hand, I was relieved, as Evil Inside VR is a very short and simple experience, and many times I love short and simple. But on the other hand, I expected more of a survival horror experience with some meat on the bones. Evil Inside VR is basically a haunted house walking sim that can be completed in one play session. Here's the gameplay loop, and this time I mean that in the most literal way possible. You're on a loop. You just keep walking through the same house on a very short and basic loop. There's no real threat, unless you consider jump scares a threat. Once you have no heart issues, there's no real threat to speak of.
I said, don't look back.
So there's no combat. Through your loop, you'll stumble across one puzzle to open a box. That was the most puzzling thing I encountered. Other than a walking sim haunted house vibe, Evil Inside VR has an almost anomaly hunting sim feel to it as well, but not really. Each time you walk through the house, something or things will be different. So you may want to pay attention, but there are no head scratchers. You also need to grab these pieces of a Ouija board. Why? Read the game's description on GameFAQs, because this was never explained to me in game. As you progress through this Twilight Zone styled loop, bits of the story kinda unravels, but again, not really.
Guilty? I'm not my father.
After a point, the loop ends and here comes the reveal, which like I said was totally ineffective. Now, here's the thing, because I know it seems like I didn't like Evil Inside VR, but I did, because it's so short and bare bones. It doesn't get the time to get old, monotonous, or tedious. It's a get in, get out quick experience. So while it did disappoint me, that was on me. No one promised me a Silent Hill or Resident Evil-like experience. I simply did no research on the gameplay because, much like with movies, I don't want to ruin the element of surprise. I most times don't read movie descriptions or watch trailers because nowadays, if you watch a movie's trailer, you've pretty much watched the entire movie. And because Evil Inside to me was like the one that got away, and now returned to me in VR, I just wanted to go in none the wiser and get a fresh experience. My bad, I suppose. Evil Inside VR isn't bad. It's just not great. If you know what you're getting yourself into before you start it up, you should be fine. It's modestly priced at $15, so there's also that. If you're up for a linear walking sim haunted house-like experience where there's no threat, almost no puzzles, a less than forgettable story, decent visuals, good sound design, effective jump scares, and a short runtime, then Evil Inside VR is the new VR horror experience for you. Thanks again to the developer and publisher for the keys. Watch the TV series, The Lab Video Game TV, Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays on Flow 1 in 25 Caribbean countries and on the Stream Blue app. Check out the Lab Video Game TV's gaming news every Thursday at 4 p.m. during the Sage Projects on Ontario's Island Radio 101.3 FM and at cjai.ca. Thank you for watching. If you like my content, feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. If on the other hand, I found some way to piss you off with this one, then take the logical course of action. Dislike, unsub, leave a fiery comment in the comments section voicing your displeasure with what you were subjected to here on this fine day. Either way, I won't hold it against you. Our game is never over.
My mom's camera. What's that doing here?